I imagine so, but I've got to tell you, when you see somebody so unwilling to look at the factual truth, and a lot of these leftists are and have been for the whole of my lifetime, you have to wonder whether they haven't completely surrendered to the fervor of their ideology in a way that makes their good intentions worthless, because they're not willing to discipline those intentions with the discipline of common sense and reason and truth.
Amazing points. Dealing with lying, though, you worked in the White House with Ronald Reagan, and even if you disagreed with him or loved him or hated him, Reagan didn't do a lot of lying. I mean, he really was honest, and his policies were very transparent. In fact, there wasn't any lying, as much I can tell, which is universes away from Clinton. Bush certainly did some deceptive things, but Obama, I mean, you've been around presidents, you've been an ambassador, you've been in these campaigns. Is it safe to say, or would you disagree with my perspective, that he is the greatest liar I've ever seen, a new level of lying? I mean, I've read books about Hitler.
No.
I've read books about other people. It seems that Obama is really the slickest liar I've ever seen.
I'm not sure. You know, I think part of the reason he appears so right now is because the mass of the American people kind of aren't used to having to assume that the person they're dealing with is, how can I put it, not just lying. They are constructing a fiction and intending that fiction to manipulate you. So in a sense, when we sit down and watch a TV show, right, we are drawn into the world. We accept the characterizations. We accept the assumptions and so forth and so on, what they call the suspension of disbelief. Now, at one level, everything we're watching is false, isn't it? Those people aren't really who they're pretending to be. Their inflections and tones do not reflect feelings they really have, and so forth and so on. And yet, because they're good at what they do, we accept it and are drawn into that world. Well, imagine that you're dealing with people for whom every aspect of public life is that kind of acted-out fiction. They're pursuing their objectives, and they just want to get you to come in and believe the world is what it needs to be so that they can achieve their power, achieve their objectives, achieve what they want to achieve. That's Barack Obama. And to say he's great at time, it's just that we're not used to having such thoroughgoing actors with no respect for truth in American politics. Yeah, we're used to liars. People lie. But underlying it all, there's been this assumption that the aim somehow is still to respect the truth. That's not the case with these folks because they don't believe it anymore. You know, the notion of the self-evident truths that establish our rights, that show clearly that justice somehow has a basis that isn't just based on the power of those who rule over you. They reject all of that. It's I think, right now very striking to us because Americans kind of have had the luxury of taking it for granted that overall this is not what American life and politics was about. But now we're having to deal with a very real fact that this way of doing politics, which overtook Europe, which overtook countries in the third world, and which radically transformed those countries into gulags and hellish places of oppression, it has now come to America.
Wow. You know what? I rarely have epiphanies these days from guests. I mean, I get a lot of good points, a lot of good ideas, but you just actually shifted my perspective. I mean, I know it's a matrix. I know it's a facade, a Wizard of Oz lie, but the way you just explained it, you're right. It's that the mainstream media and the system is playing to his tune with such choreographed precision that it creates a whole Disneyland of lies. So it's not just Bill Clinton saying I didn't have sex with that woman or lying about, you know, corruption. It's that the whole thing's a lie.
Well, exactly. They are creating, as it were, a perceived reality that serves their purposes. And, of course, the ground started to be laid for this years ago when these people started that phony mantra, perception is reality. Perception is reality. This is not true, not if God exists, at least, because there is a principle of reality that transcends human perception and understanding and is the basis for making real judgments on a rational way about what is right, what is wrong, what should or should not be done. They reject that notion of having such a basis for morality. And the only standard they claim is a scientific one. But of course, remember, science cannot tell us anything about what is right and what is wrong, what is just, what is unjust. Science can't address that in any way.
Sir, we've got limited time. We've got about 12 minutes left, and I'm even going to skip this network break so we have this time with you because I've got several other questions I want to get to and certainly have you back up in the near future. Very honored to have Ambassador Alan Keyes on with us today. Very thought-provoking. Especially, perception isn't reality if the person giving you the perception is putting false data in or lying or distorting. I mean, if you're wearing a headset of virtual reality goggles and you see a flat green field you're walking in, but really you're about to walk off a 100-story building,
right,
you're going to fall and die. The goggles are lying to you. Perception isn't reality, but that was just me backing you up there.
Think of it. This is exactly what they were trying to do with this healthcare business. Sell it on the basis of we're going to give everybody access, it's going to be better, and it's going to be less costly, and all of this. And then when you started to get into the detail, it wasn't actually less costly. They were just going to shift the distribution of the cost so that the elderly citizens and so forth were going to be targeted in particular for rationing so that those costs could be distributed differently. They said, well, everybody's going to have access and so forth, but the burden of paying for that suddenly shifted. So that instead of coming out of the corporate profit, it will now come out of the taxpayer coffers. What does that mean? It means that invisibly and quietly, the working people are being made to pay for what they were not paying for in terms of the present arrangement.
And the government's got a whole new tax to pull out of your paycheck. Now we got exactly. We've got 10 minutes left here. I want to ask you quick questions now. Eugenics, from my research, Ambassador, is the foundation of these control freaks. They believe we're all just blobs of protoplasm, so why not get rid of 80% of us? United Nations Biological Diversity Assessment 96, State Department Memorandum 200, Eric Holder, all these other people, John P. Holdren, Ecoscience, Population, Resources, Environment, calls for forced drugging the water to sterilize us, forced abortion, CPS taking basically all children, raising them in government hives. And I have all these other government textbooks, and you're a learned person, I know you're aware of this, exposing the whole abortion agenda, which is only one level, and then he unfreezes the money for forced abortion, and where they say, oh, you'll get the welfare in Africa, but we've got to sterilize you. Can you speak to John P. Holdren and the whole eugenics situation and what Margaret Sanger and the whole abortion industry really is?
Well, this is one of those things that is one of the reasons I had been so clear about his absolute adamant commitment to this whole abortion thing, so that he carried it as far as saying that babies born alive should be allowed to die because their mothers wanted them aborted. That is a reflection of what you're talking about. Sometimes people think this is just about the specific particular murder of that baby that abortion itself involves. No. You look at Margaret Sanger, that woman was about a strategy based on eugenics